Yeah, hi there and welcome back. So let us continue with our lesson, and in this section we will be learning about the view model, and we will see what is a view model and how do we implement a view model and the different ways to implement a view model in our project, as well as the view model and the Android view model. So we will see the basic difference and when to use the view model versus the Android view model, and how do we share a view model between the different fragments. So let's say we have a multiple fragment and we just want to have one view model and share the data between all of those fragments. So how do we do that one? And also, how do we pass a parameter to the view model constructor? By default, the view model doesn't take any parameter to the constructor. We have to do some kind of implementation over there. So we will see all of those. Total we have a 6 topic to cover in this section. So let us go and take a look one by one. So first of all, let us go to the Android documentation about the view model and let us see what does it actually says. So the Android view model is the part of the Android Jetpack component. So if you go to the Android Jetpack, and it has the lot of the other libraries that we can make use, but the view model is also the part of the Android Jetpack architecture component. So here it basically says the view model class is designed to store and manage the UI data in a lifecycle conscious way. So the main thing is to take a note on the lifecycle conscious way. The view model class allows the data to survive the configuration change, such as the screen rotations. So basically what it actually does is the view model is the place where we put all of our data related to our UI. So UI basically don't hold any data. The view model is the one that holds all of the data. Why do we put all of our data in the view model? Is because the view model survives the configuration change, such as the screen rotation. So if you take a note, and if you haven't used a view model before, you were just using the fragment or the activity, you may have noticed that when your screen is rotated or you have some configuration change, then the data is also lost. So when we rotate our screen, actually it will recreate our fragment or the activity. So at that time, when there is a recreation of our fragment or the activity, we lose all of our data. But there is a ways that we can save this particular data using the on save instant, and we can restore back in the on restore the instant state. So we have an option to save as well as to restore the state, but it is limited. There is a limitation over there. So we cannot have a lot of data to save over this particular on save instant state, because it can only hold a less amount of data. The small amount of data it can hold, but if you have a large amount of data, such as a list, and that contain a large amount of data, it cannot hold. The memory that it allocates is limited over there, such as the pictures, so bitmaps. So the limitation is over there. That's why the view model is very important over here, because it makes our life much easier to handle all of the rotation and the screen rotation, as well as the configuration change. So just go through this documentation over here and just try to go and read through all of this, because you will understand it more better, that why do we use a view model. So instead of just going and blankly writing the code and implementing it. So if you have some basic understanding about what does it actually do and why do we need a view model, so you will have a better understanding and you will be a better developer and topic of the Android. So if you go down, I'm not going to see all of those. Let me go and see over here. So typically when we have an activity or the fragment, we have a life cycle. So you can see there is a life cycle. The activity is created, right? On start, on resume, and the on pause, on stop, on destroy. So these are the life cycle that the activities or the fragment have. But if you take a view model over here, the view model has only one life cycle. So it is created on where it is created over here and cleared over here. So when this is destroyed, then we get a on clear. So when typically the activity or the fragment is rotated, then again it will recreate for us. So the on destroy is on pause is called, on stop is called, and on destroy is called, which means that the particular activity is destroyed, and on create is again called, so it went again back onto the top, and on start and on resume. So this is the typical process of the life cycle. And to handle this issue, we have a view model. So view models is the one that it is on create whenever we have release, it's created one time, and it is destroyed on our whenever we have the activity is finished. So I think this will be much clearer for you when we actually use it, and try to go and learn more about the life cycle, because if you are not familiar with the life cycle of the fragment as well as the activity, then you may find a bit difficult to understand. So I think that's enough talking, and I think we should move on to the next topic, that how do we implement a view model, because we saw about the view model and why do we need it, and why do we need it, and what kind of problem that it actually solves. So just go through this documentation and try to read all of those the things over here and try to understand it. So let's go back to our project over here. So let me go over here. So I have already created a one project over here, and that has some fragment. So we have some fragment over here, home fragment. So total I have a 3 fragment over here. So we will be implementing a view model for all of those fragments. So 1, 2, and 3 fragments. So currently it doesn't have any implementation. I have just extended it with the fragment over here. Right, so I have just extended with the fragment, and when I run the application, it will look something like this. So we have just the 3 we have a 3 fragment over here, and I have implemented a bottom navigation view, and that's it. So there is nothing, so we don't have any data or anything. So let's go and implement our view model. So first of all, let's go to I will go to the home, and I will create a new Kotlin class over here, and I will call it as home view model. Okay, so I have a home view model, and I'll create another one over here. That's for the, okay, so let me go over here and just copy this, and let me create a new class over here, and I'll call this as a Kotlin view model. You can give any name, but I'm just using at this one. So it should be, okay, I need to refactor this one. Let me refactor. It should be on the uppercase view model. And then I have the another one which is of RX Java, and I'll call it as RX Java view model. Okay, so we have added a 3 view model. So let me close all of the fragment first, and we just have a 3 view model open over here. So home and the Kotlin as well as the RX Java. So we have all of those, and this is an empty class, and we will extend a view model. It comes from AndroidX.lifecycle. So make sure you take it from there, the view model. And okay, so we just implemented a view model over here, and same goes to over here. We will just say our view model, extend it the view model class, and over here too. So the view model, just extend that class. So now all of our 3 view model, we have created a 3 view model, and it doesn't do anything over here. So let me add some value over here. So I'll just say val, let's say counter, let's say I'll say countr counter first of all, and this will be mutable live data, and this should be of the type of the integer. So let's say, and this is of the mutable live data. The default value let us give as the 0. So I have just created one variable which is of the counter over here. Instead of val, I think I will make use of the var, because later I want to change that particular value. And just copy this one, and I'll just paste it on the other view model over here. So let's have the same variable about all of the view model that we have. So I think that's all that we will do in the view model for now. Just let me close all of this view model. So we have created and implemented a view model, or created a view model, but we haven't implemented it in our fragment. Okay, so the next thing is that we need to go to our fragment, so home fragment, and what I will do is I will just go and implement the on create, and also let us implement the on view created, on create view, as well as the on create, on view created, on view created. Okay, so let me implement all of those, and let me copy the same thing for other fragment too. So I'll just go back to the not the view model, so I need to go to the fragment, and let me implement all of those, override all of those functions over here, as well as on the RxJava. Okay, so I think we have implemented that one, and let's go back to the home fragment, and I need a private let init var, just a bin behind the binding. So I need let's say our fragment fragment. I have a home binding, so I will use a view binding over here, and also I need a private, and I need a let init var of the view model, so that is to be of the home view model. Okay, so we have a view model over here as well as the binding. So let's go to the view, and let me go to the layout and the fragment home, and we have a small button over here, and one button and one text each over there. So what we will do is I need to go to the fragment over here, and over here what I will do is I will implement the binding, which is of equals to, I need to get from the frag fragment home binding that inflate, and inflate the layout inflator, and I need to return the binding dot the root. Okay, so that will return us the view, and now I can remove the view cannot be nullable. Okay, so I have got that one implementation. So binding is there, and I'll just make use of the binding dot, I can say the button counter dot set on click listener. So whenever I click on that button, so I want to increase the counter for our view model value. So where is that view model? So home view model, we have this one variable counter, so I need to increment this particular value. So let's go back over here, and I'll just say that the view model dot the counter dot the value that we have, right, and I need to increment that one. So I'll just say I'll just increment it by 1. Okay, so why it is not incrementing, I need to call a safe call. So I think I'll just go and remove this one instead of the safe call. Dot value dot plus and plus 1. Okay, so I also need to not null over here. I think that should be fine. So what I'm actually doing over here is I'm just want to increase value whenever the button is clicked. So the default value is of the 0, and whenever we click on that particular button, it will just add the 1 plus 1 and increase our value for us. The next step is whenever increase, we want to show that particular value to this particular text box. So what we will do is I will just say binding dot, and I will just say the LB counter dot text, and which is equals to the view model dot, I have the counter dot value dot toString. So I need to convert it to toString because that is of the integer value. So I just cut and paste inside over here. yeah, that's look fine. And now I need to initialize this view model because we haven't initialized that view model. So I'll just go over here and just say we'll just initialize the view model as the view model provider, which comes from the Android X lifecycle. And over here I need to pass the owner, so I'll just say a view lifecycle owner, or I can just pass this over here. And the second parameter, okay, so not the factory we will be using later, and I'll just say dot get and the model class. So I need to pass the model class over here, that is of the home view model and class.java. So now we have initialized the view model. Initialize the view model. Okay, I think the spelling is not correct, so I think I will just initialize the view model. Okay, so we have initialized the view model, and if I try to run my application for now, and let's hope that everything will work fine. So let's wait for the application to come up. And I think, yeah, so now if I say counter, so now you can see that we have a value of 6. And if I try to rotate this one, and you see this still home, the home is still there because we recreated the fragment over there. And if I change, you can see that previously was 6, it continued to 7, 8, 9, and 10. So let me rotate back this one to the original rotation. And the activity is recreated, that's why we have the home over here, which is the default text whenever the activity is created. So now if I say, it will go to again 11. So how do we, whenever the screen rotation is done, so how do we keep the same value? So for that, since this is the live data or the mutable live data, we can observe this value. So it will preserve that value for our UI. So we don't have, whenever the UI is recreated, it doesn't get the default value. Instead, we get the value from our view model. So for that, what we will do is I'll just go over here and observe that particular value, ViewModel.counter.observe. And here I will pass the view lifecycle owner, and we will implement that particular. Now we get the observer as the int value, you can see. And then I can just set this value over here. So just cut and paste it over here, and instead of this one I can just pass it.toString. And if I run this one, that should solve our current problem, because whenever we are rotating the screen, we get back the default value of the home. So now if it is 0, and if I say that is 5, and if I try to rotate my screen over here, so let us, okay, you get the same value 5 counter, and let me increase, and let us rotate back the screen, and we get the same value as the 10. So this particularly solve our problem. So this is how we observe the mutable live data or the live data, and get the updated value in our UI. So in the UI, we don't hold any data over here, right? So we are not holding any data. So all the data is holding by our view model. So this is the view model that is holding our the counter value. So we can implement the same thing for the rest of our particular. I think let's go to the RX Java or the counter for the counting fragment over here. So I'll just implement same thing over here. Private let init var of the bin binding, and this should be of the counting binding. And another one is the private let init var of I need a view model, and that is of the counting view model. So let me go over here and let me see that the binding, which is of equals to, we will get the fragment and the counting binding that inflate, and I'll just say the layout inflator, and then I will return I have to return the binding dot the view binding the root. Okay, so that should solve our issue over there. And the next is over here. So I think I just copy the same thing from here, so I don't have to rewrite it again and again. So just paste it over here. I just have to say the button counter coroutine as well as the LB counter coroutine. So I just have to change that particular to text, and I just have to implement the view model over here. So let's say my view model is of equals to view model provider, and at the dot, and I have to pass as this or the context over here dot get that particular class as the coroutine view model and get the class. Okay, so now if I run my application, let me go to let us open our application, and it should be the same thing that we previously did, 1 2 3. And if I go over here and 1 2 3, yeah, that's working fine. And if I come back, then you can see it's reset to 0. So there is another problem that we have to fix. And if I move back to again the another fragment, then the value is again reset to the 0. That's why, because whenever we are switching this particular tab over here, the bottom fragment or the bottom navigation, it will recreate our fragment, and so it will destroy our previous fragment, the object of the previous fragment, and it will recreate our fragment every time we switch this particular over here. And whenever we recreate it, our fragment is destroyed, the view model get destroyed. So the fragment was finished, and then it has cleared all of our view model. So that's why we have this one particular reset value over here. So we can fix that issue. That's not a big issue. We can easily fix that. So let's move on to the third one, which is of the over here, and I'll just implement the same thing over here. So val, and I'll just say bind binding, which each, okay, I think it should be of the let init var, and of the the binding, which is of equals to fragment, fragment, fragment of the rx java binding, and let init var of the view model of the rx java view model. Okay, and I'll just go over here, and I have to implement the binding, which is of equals to the fragment rx java binding that inflate dot, I have to layout inflator, and return over here each of the binding dot the root. Okay, so that should be fine. And on create, I will initialize the view model, which is of equals to the view model model provider, and I pass the context as this, and get that particular model class over here, which is of the rx java view model. Okay, that should be fine. And then I can just copy back this particular same thing and just paste it over here. That should be fine. And I then change this one button rx java counter, and here I'll say lb java rx java counter. Okay, that should be fine. If I run my application, and let's go to our application, and it should be the same thing. A counter 1 2 3 and 1 2 3 4 and 5, and everything is working fine, right? So now the next step is we will go and see what we need to do. How do we implement a view model? So we have take a look on how do we implement. Just now we implement the view model already, and let us see different ways to implement our view model. So there is a different ways how we can actually implement a view model. So just now we saw is just a one way to implement a view model. So let us see the another way that we can actually use to implement a view model. So what we will do is I'll just duplicate this line, and I'll just comment out this first one, and instead of the over here, instead of this one, what I will do is I'll just say by, and I'll just say the view model. and it should be the view models, not the view model. Why? What happened? So it should be a view model. Yeah, this is the view models that I have to implement. Okay, so the view models, and what does it actually say? It cannot have the let in it, and it should be of the val. And here I can comment out this one. So this is the another way, and I can do the same thing for the home fragment over here. Just duplicate this line and comment out this one, and not the private let in it. It should be of the val over here, and I can just say by the view model as view models, and just import that one. So you can see that Android X fragment.app that view model. Just import that one, import the class, and it comes from the Android X fragment extension that we are actually using, so we can make use of that one. So that should be fine, and I can just comment out this one over here. That all of those stuff can be actually over here. So if you go and read all of those stuff over here, you can see that one. So the view model, and you can see that how it has actually implemented the view model using by activity. So I'm just using by view model, and by activity view model Kotlin property delegates from the fragment KTX extension. So it comes from the fragment-KTX extension for the Kotlin property. So you can just go through that all of the documentation, and since we have initialized it over here, we can remove it from here. So I'll just go to the another one, which is of the Kotlin fragment, and I'll just do the same thing. So just duplicate this one, and I can just remove this one as a val, and I'll just say by the ViewModel models, and just import that package, and I can comment out this one over here. So now I can just run my application and let us test, and that should be the one that how to implement a different ways of the view model. So this is another way that we can actually implement our view model. And if I go over here, counter, yeah, and everything is working. If I go over here, the view model is working fine. So how do we fix this issue? So when we switch the tab particularly over here, we don't want to reset our value, right? So how we can get that one is, okay, so let us see in the first way. So this is the first this is the one that we are currently implementing the view model. So instead of the view model, I can just say activity view model. I can just implement this activity view model over here. And if I go to the home over here, and instead of the view model, I just duplicate that one. I think easy for you to guys see the difference. So I'll just activity view models. Okay, so I just have to implement the activity view model, because when we say the activity view model, it's actually make use of our main activity, because activity is the main folder for our fragment. So we have our activity, and on top of that particular activity, we have all of our fragment resides inside, all on top of this activity. So that's why we have to make use of we have to initialize the view model on our activity itself. And then if I go to the counter, and okay, so we have already implemented, and I think in the RX Java fragment. So I'll just duplicate this one and just remove that one. Instead of this one, I'll just say Android what I did by not the Android, it should be activity view models. Okay, if I run my application, that should work fine, and that should preserve our data that we have currently. So whenever we switch to that, it should preserve our data. So if I have a counter of the 5, and if I say 1 2 3 and 1 2 3 4, so if I go to home, we get a 5. If I say over here counter, I get 3, and if I go over here again get a 4. So this is how we can actually preserve the data whenever we switch the tab, because whenever we switch to the different tab, the fragment get recreated and the view model is recreated to it got destroyed and recreated. But if we make use of the activity view model over here, it can preserve, it will initialize our view model on the activity itself. So it is now based on the life cycle of the activity, not based on the life cycle of our fragment. So when the fragment is destroyed, the activity is still there because the activity has the longer life cycle than the fragment. So that's why our view model is still alive. So the next way we will go and see is the different way to implement the view model. So we have seen a different way to implement our view model. So let's see the difference between the view model and the Android view model. So let us go back to our project over here. And what we will do now is let me close all of those stuff because we have finished this section. And the next is let me go to the home view model. Now we have implemented our view model, but I can also implement the Android view model over here. And when I implement the Android view model, I have to pass if I go to this implementation, you can see that the Android view model takes the implementation or the parameter or the argument of the application class. So we need to pass the application class over here whenever we are initializing the Android view model. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So if I go over here, and now if I have the Android view model, I need to have the application class over here, application application, as the extend the Android app.application over here, and I have to pass this over here. Now that's the error has gone, because if you take an implementation of the Android view model, we have to pass the application. You can see it's still extending the view model itself. The Android view model is still extending the view model itself, but when we want our application context in our view model, so if you want our application context in our view model, then we have to make use of the Android view model because we need the application class. But this is not a good way, because when we make use of the application class over here, it depends on the Android framework. So basically, when we make use of the view model, we don't have to depend on the Android framework itself, because later that when we want to make use when we want to write a unit test for this particular class, at that time we have to have the application class, or we need to have the access to the Android application framework. So that's not a good way to implement a view model. So view model should not rely on any of the Android framework itself. It should be a separate class. It will be much easier to test later if you are implementing a unit test over here. And if you run the application, so if I try to run my application, and it should work perfectly fine. So we should not see any error over here. So if I select the counter and if I go back, you can see it's still working fine. So that's the main difference between the view model and the Android view model. So when we make use of the view model, we don't have access to the application or the context over here. But when we are making use of the Android view model, we have access to the application, which means that we have access to any context of our fragment, or whenever we want to make use of a context in our view model, then we can make use of the Android view model. But it's not the best practice. If you are just learning, or if you are just doing a small project, then it should be fine. But if you are building a big application where you want to implement a unit test and all of those stuff, so this can be avoided using the another option that we have. Then how to share. Okay, so the next step is how do we share a view model, between the different fragments. So let's say we have only one view model and we want to share between all of those fragments. So how we can do that one? So let's go and take a look on this one. So I'll just revert back to the view model itself. Let us not implement the Android view model. So let's say we have a home view model, and let us implement the home view model in all of our other fragments. So in the RxJava fragment, as well as in our the curtain fragment. So what we need to do is I have to replace this particular one with the home view model, right? And also in the RxJava fragment. Okay, so in the RxJava fragment I have already replaced. So here is the one. So home view model, and then that should be fine. So if I just run my application, and let us open our device over here, and if I have a counter of 7, if I go over here, next the another fragment, every fragment now gets the same value. So if I increase it to up to 9, here we get the same value of the 9, and if I go over the home, I get the same value of the 9. So which means by now it is sharing the same fragment. So if you want to share a fragment, make sure you use the activity view models instead of the view models over here. So if you just use a view models over here in the each fragment over here, let me go to the fragment. So currently we are making use of the activity view models over here. By this, which means that the view model is created in our activity. It has the lifecycle scope for our activity. That's why we can get the same view model for all of our fragment, and we can initialize. So it doesn't recreate everything. So once it is created, then it holds in the scope in our main activity, and it doesn't recreate the view model again and again. It's when we are making use of the activity view model over here. But if you just make use of the view model over here, so if I just make use of the view model over here, or let me just duplicate that one and comment out this one, and here it should be of the view model, right? Okay, now if I make use of this one, it doesn't work. If it will recreate the view model every time. So if I go and use the same one over here, and I'll just uncomment this one, and instead of that RxJava view model, I'll use this one. And also in the curtain as well as the, okay, so here too, here we are using the view model instead of the activity view model. Here same, and as well as here. So let us run our application one more time, and if I go to the device now, and that should recreate a view model for us every time we launch a new fragment. So here you can see every time we are launching a new fragment, it will recreate the value for us. So if you want to share a view model, make sure that you make use of the activity view models over here and implement the view models, the share view model in all of your fragment over there. So I can just comment out this one, right? And also in the fragment. Okay, so this is the one way to share a view model, and we can also make use how we can share using the another option. So this is another way to implement the view model using the view model provider instead of using the KTX extension. So what I can do is I can just comment out this one and just get this one, the latent var for the view model, and over here now we have that view model over here. So let me do the same thing for the curtain fragment also, and let me initialize this one as well as in our RxJava fragment. So let me comment out this one and this one too, and over here. So now we are currently using the owner as this means the current instance of this particular fragment, right? So we are passing the owner as this, and this means the current the current instance of this current fragment. So if I go over here, we have passed this and this over here. So which means it is passing the owner as the fragment itself. So what we can do over here, we can pass the same as the required activity as the owner. So this will have the scope for our activity lifecycle. So I just copy this one and implement the same thing in all of the fragment and just run this one. That should work as the same as the activity view models. If I go over here and if I take the counter of the 4, now I get like a 4 over here. Okay, why it is not implementing that one? Home view model. Okay, so I think I'm not implementing that the home view. Yeah, so I need to pass the home view model over here. So I need to pass the home view model here, also the home view model. Over here I also need to pass the home view model and the home view model. So let us run this one more time. I just forgot to pass that particular the home view model over here because we just want to say the one view model for all of our fragment. And now if I say counter increase and if I go to all the fragment and I get the same value, right? So that's how we can make you share the view model. So if you take a look how to share a view model between the fragments. So we are actually using different ways to share our view model to all of our fragments. So one view model and we share it with our different fragment over there. So the next option that we want to learn over here is how do we pass a parameter to the ViewModel constructor. So let's say we have some requirement over here. So let's take a look on our view model. So if I go to the home view model over here, currently we are not passing any constructor argument over here. But let's say when we want to have a dependency injection, so let's say you are using a Dagger or you want to use a Hilt or any other dependency injection framework. So we basically have to pass the constructor parameter for our dependency. That is the best way to deal with the all of the dependency injection. So let's say we want to pass some dependency injection over here. So how do we pass that one? So if I go to, okay, so I have already in the util, I have a network helper class as well as the schedule provider class over here. So I want to pass these two dependencies for the view model over here. So how can I do that is in the constructor, let's say I pass the private, just say as a val of the network connection helper, and the second is the let's say a private val of the schedule provider. So I have these two constructor parameter over here, and in the view model, and I need to pass that particular to itself. So I'll just say network helper connection, and also I will pass sorry not over here. I made a mistake. Okay, so now we have a constructor parameter for our view model class, which is home view model. And if I try to run my class, or if I try to run my application, and now if you try to run, you can see the app just crashed. And if you go to the logcat, you should see that it just crashed, right? So the commit not allowing or something, yeah, you can see that it has an error, cannot create an instance of the class for the home view model. So this is a problem over here. So let's say we want to have a constructor parameter for the view model class. So that's not going to work. So we have to fix this issue. So I'll just copy this one for our other section over here. So the RX server, and also for the another one over here. So let me, okay, so now we have a constructor parameter for all of the three view model. So let me close all of those that I'm not going to use it for now, and just open the view model. Okay, so we have a 3 view model, and all of this view model has now a constructor parameter that we can pass. But if we run our application, it's not working, it's crashing because it cannot create the instance of this view model. So how do we go and create a working view model? So let's go to the home fragment, and inside this class, let me create another class over here, and call this class as the, let's say, home view model FSCTORY factory. Here we will pass the two constructor parameter. Just copy this one instead of typing. Just copy and paste it over here. And this class will extend the ViewModel provider dot the factory. And now I can override the function create function over here. So here you can see that now I have created another class which is a ViewModel home ViewModel factory, and that extends the ViewModel provider dot factory. And if you go to this particular factory, this is the interface, and you can see that implements interface for responsible for the instantiate of the view model. It is responsible for the instantiate of the view model. So whenever we want to create the view model, it is the factory interface that is responsible, and create a new instance of the given class. So how do we make use of this one? So if I go over here, now we have the create override the create function over here. Now I can just return the model class over here that we have dot. We can pass the constructor over here, and in the constructor we have to pass that two class that we are making use over here. The two class is of the network helper connection and the class .java, and the another one is of the schedule provider, the class .java. And then I can pass the another argument dot, okay, what happened, model class dot the get constructor, not the constructor. I'm sorry, so it should be of the get the constructor over here, not the constructor dot, and I create a new instance over here and pass that particular to instance variable over here. So we have a network connection as well as the schedule provider. So I will just go back to the another fragment called coding fragment over here, and inside there I'll also create a class and call this class as the, just copy this name and pass as the FSCTORY factory, and here, and I have to extend that particular ViewModel provider dot the factory interface, and then I can override the create method. Okay, so here I need to pass the constructor parameter. So the constructor parameter is the same that we want to pass. Just copy this and I'll just paste it over here. So now I need to implement this create method. So return, and this is from the model class that we have to make use, model class dot, and the get the constructor, and when I get the constructor I have to pass the network helper connection dot the class .java, and another one is of the schedule provider class .java, and then dot the new instance that I have to create is of the network helper and also of the schedule provider. Okay, so that is the one, right? And let me write all of the code first, then I will explain you a bit more. So I'll just go to the fragment over here and just open that one, and over here we will write the same class. So class, and give the FSCTORY factory, and then it will extend the ViewModel provider dot the factory the factory interface, and we have to override the create function over here. And then here in the constructor parameter for this class, we have to pass that to argument. Okay, so I've just raised that one. Okay, and then I have to return the instance, return the model class dot the get the constructor, and in the constructor we will pass the network helper class and also the schedule provider class. And then finally we will just new instance and provide the network helper as well as the schedule provider. So no matter how many parameters that we have set up in the view model, so you just have to make use of the same thing over here. We just pass it over here and we extend the view model.factory over here, and then we implement the create function over here and return the model class.constructor and pass that particular to how many parameters that we have. We pass it over here and create a new instance of this particular view model using that one. So if we go to over here, the view model provider and the view model provider owner, that we have to pass all of those stuff. But let me show you one more over here. Where is that one? Okay, so the new instance that implement the factory, and okay, so model class over the view model, that model class. So we are actually passing the same thing, the create function that we are overriding over here, and the model class that new instance, creating a new instance for us. And if I go over here and the constructor and pass in the get constructor, so if I have to go to the get constructor, the implementation, we have to pass the class over here, class as the parameter type. So here we are passing that all of the classes that we have over here, right? So the dependency that we have to pass it over here. And the new instance, if I go to the implementation, the new instance, it takes the objects, right, and then throw if illegal exception, illegal access, all of this, and if serialized null, all of those stuff, and then finally return us the new instance from the serialized. So all of those implementation you can just go and check, right? And this is how we are creating extending the view model factory now. And now we have to implement this one over here. So how do we implement this? Well, I just have to create a network helper, and which is of the network helper, and here I have to pass the context. I'll just pass as the just require context. Okay, and the another I need is of the schedule provider, which is of the RX Java schedule provider. Okay, and then I have to implement the let's say a val, and implement this particular class, and let's say of the RX Java view model factory, which is of equals to the RX Java view model factory, and here we have to pass that to particular argument that is of the network helper and the schedule provider. Okay, so now we have that particular class, and over here, so the view model provider, now I can pass the second parameter over here, which is the factory class, the view model that provided that factory. So that is the one that we have extended over here. So now this is ready for us. So I can just copy this and paste that one over here. So same thing, I'll just copy, right? So I'll just copy the same thing over here, and I'll just go to the home fragment. So home fragment, and just initialize it over here. And then what I have to do is, okay, so this is not needed. Instead of the RX, I have a home view model factory, and I have to implement that one. And let's pass that one. Okay, and then instead of this one, I have to implement this one. So home view model factory, because we have a home view model factory over here. And then finally I can just pass the second parameter over here for the view model provider to this one, right? And the same thing that we will do for our another the coding fragment over here. Let us go to the onCreate and initialize the val, and what the class name, just get that particular class name and pass it over here. So this is the coding view model provider factory, which is of equals to, sorry, this should be C, and here we have to pass it two parameter of the network helper as well as the schedule provider. Okay, so then finally I can just pass this factory method over here, so the factory class, pass it over there, and that should be of the, okay, so we are implementing the, not the home view model, this class is implementing the, we are implementing the another class. So okay, so let's not use the, because we don't want to use the home view model over here. We want to make use of the coding view model over here. So I just have to make use of the coding view model over there too. Okay, and then for the RxJava fragment, so here not the home view model, we make use of the RxJava view model, and same I will pass it over here. So we are currently not sharing that particular view model, so we just want to have a single view model for each of. And okay, so let's try to run, and let us test our application. So I'll just go to the application, and let us see whether it's working. So okay, so if I go and increase the counter, and it's working fine. Yeah, so now you can see that it's able to create an instance of our view model that has some constructor parameter over here. So this is the one that we were talking, how to share a view, how to pass a constructor parameter so to our view model. So this is the way that we actually are going to pass that particular. So when we have a requirement, or when your dependency for the view model has certain class, and then or certain object that we want to pass to the view model, by default it's not possible. So we have to extend, we have to create a class and extend the view model provider.factory the interface, and implement the implement the create method over here, and just return the instance of that particular view model, passing all of the constructor parameter that we need. So when we create a new instance, we are able to pass the dependencies that it actually has for our view model. So this is a one way of doing. But now if you take a look, we have to implement this new class in all of our fragments. So let's say you have a 10 fragment, then you have to write the same class and extend the view model the factory for each of the fragment, right? So this is not the best way to do all of this stuff. We can utilize a single class, and where we can extend the view model the factory the interface, and implement all of the create, and it will help us to reduce the code, because we don't have to write this class in each of the fragment that we have. So how we can do is, let's go and create a new class over here. I'll create a Kotlin class, and I'll just call it as a ViewModel provider FSCTOR factory. So I've created a new class over here. Okay, I think I made a spelling mistake, so let me refactor that one. So it should be ViewModel ViewModel factory. Okay, so we have created one class over here, and then I'll take a generic type over here. Sorry. So let us take okay, so what happened? I have highlighted that. Okay, so let us take a generic type as a view model over here, or we take as a T, and it should be of the view model. and this should extend the view model provider dot the factory. And now I can just implement the member function over there, and I can take a constructor parameter over here, and then I'll just say let's create a private val, and over here I'll just call it as a k class, and that should be type of the T. So whatever we are passing as a generic type, whatever view model class, any view model. So let's say it's a view model of the Kotlin view model, or the RxJava view model, or the home view model. So whatever we are passing, so whatever view model we are passing over here, the generic type, that we are using as a k class. And the second parameter, I'll use a private val, and I'll just create a lambda function over here, create creator, and that should be of the lambda function that I will create, and it will return the type of the T itself. So whatever we are passing as the generic type, or whatever the view model class we are passing, it will create a return type of this particular lambda expression is that particular class that we are passing. So whatever class we are passing as a view model, the return type of this creator or the lambda expression is the particular class type. And over here on the create, we have to do is we will check for the condition if the model class that we are passing that is assignable from the k class. So we check over here, if it is assignable, then we will return the creator over here. So we'll return the lambda expression as the T. Otherwise we will just throw an illegal exception, throw thr, throw the illegal argument exception, and we'll just pass the unknown class. And I can add the unchecked cast over there. I think I'll add in on function itself. Okay, so we have created a one class that is extending the view model provider factory, same as that what we did over here is extending the view model factory, right? But here we are passing the generic type of the view model. So any class that we can pass that is extending the view model, we can pass it over here. And this is a create class that's two parameter it is taking. The create class itself, which if I go and take an implementation, represents the class and provide the introspection I think I spelled that correctly, capabilities, which is I think generally is it talking about the reflection. So I think it's quite similar to the Java reflection over here. And because we are passing the k class over here, instance of this class are obtained by the / syntax. So it's quite similar to the reflection. You can just go to the Kotlin documentation to read more about it, because we have to pass the class over here, and that class will be later utilized over here. So it will check whether that the model class is assignable from that particular class that we are passing, and if it is assignable, which means that if it is passed, then we are just returning that as the lambda function as the T that whatever we are passing. So I hope you guys got it. So try to just go through, and it may be a bit difficult for you to understand, but it's quite simple if you try it on your own. So now we have this class. What we will do is I can just comment out all of this. So let me comment out this one, because I'm not going to use this one for now, as well as in the home fragment itself. So let me comment out this one. So that's going to save a lot of time for us, because we don't have to rewrite the code in each of the fragment. Okay, now let us go over here, and instead of this particular class we can implement that particular. So I can just implement directly, I think. So let me just go to the home view model first of all, home view fragment, and let me comment out all of those, because just comment out, and also in the RX Java let me comment out, and let me go to the home fragment. So over here and here, the second parameter we have to pass the factory, right? So the ViewModel factory. So the ViewModel factory that we just created is the ViewModel provider factory class that we just created over here. And here we have to pass the K class, right? The 2 parameter is taking, and that is the type of the K class. What is our class name? Each of the home ViewModel, that class that we pass over here. And the second is the lambda expression that we have to pass over here, and that should be of the home ViewModel, and here we have to pass that 2. So this, where is that 2 over here? So network helper, and the another one each of the schedule provider. Okay, so that should be fine. So we can do the same thing. Where is that particular error coming from? Is there any error? I think no error, right? And if I go to the another fragment, which is of the coding fragment, and let here. So the second parameter that we have to pass is the factory method. So just class we created, ViewModel provider factory. This is the just class we created, and here we have to pass the K class, which is of the coding ViewModel that class. And then second parameter that we have to pass is the lambda expression. So in the lambda expression we pass the same class of it should be the coding ViewModel, and here we will pass that network helper as well as the schedule provider, and that should be fine. We are just replacing the ViewModel factory by our custom class that we created. So we had previously created in each of these class or the fragment, but currently now we have a single class that's handling all of those stuff, so we don't have to rewrite the code. That is the best way. And here, so I'll just remove that one, and here we have to pass the second argument or the parameter as the ViewModel provider factory class that we just created, and here I'll pass as the RX Java ViewModel the K class, and the second parameter is of the ViewModel itself. So RX Java ViewModel, and pass that the network helper and the schedule provider. Okay, that should be the one. And if you run our application, let us run our application, and that should be fine. So if I go and take a look over here, and let us try to, okay, so I think the application just crashed. So did it crashed? Okay, so let's go to the logcat. Yeah, I think the application just crashed on create. Yeah, so on create over here, it's passed throwing the illegal exception. So we have to fix this issue. So let me go and check what I actually did, what I actually did wrong over there. So let me go to the home fragment. I think let us check the logcat first of all. I think what is the problem over here. So it should be on this class, and I think this should be not the class that we want. We just want the class.java, and if I go to this assignable, so each assignable is taking just the class. So I just have to pass the class.java, not the K class itself. So that should be fine. So I think it's if I run my application for now, and if I go to the over here, yeah, it's running fine. So now if I go over here, okay, it's running fine, right? And yeah, that's it. So I think it's fine. So we have fixed that particular issue, and this is the best way that we can do. We just create a one single class that can handle, or we can pass all of the other view model, and we don't have to create every time in our fragment and extend the view model provider.factory. So that's have finished our how to pass the parameter to the view model constructor. So I hope you enjoyed this section, and we learned a lot of things over here about the view model, and hope you enjoyed this. This was quite a long topic, and we have covered a lot of topic over here. So we spent more than 1 hour over here, but I think we have learned a lot of things over here. So if you like this video, just give me a thumbs up or just share it. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you like my videos. And if you have any requirement, like if you want me to create videos on certain topic, just do let me know. So we will meet up in the next lecture. Till then, have a great day.